is a story.
Hi everyone, welcome to your February Alchemy Scope. You are indeed transmuting from lead to gold. Your energy is refining, your stories are refining. Let's take a look at, as we look at this beautiful rainy day, let's take a look at the Sabian Symbol imbued at the new moon point happening this month on the 27th of January, Friday, at 4:06 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This new moon point is the point that the alchemy scopes follow. So let's look, what is the Sabian symbol that's living at the 8-degree 15-minute point in the zodiac wheel. This is a flag is seen turning into an eagle. That's the symbology. Dane Rudyard's keynote is the dynamic incorporation of new social values in individuals who exemplify the spiritual potential and greatest significance of these values. He goes on to explain, to see the new archetype, to perceive the new standard of value with one's mind is not enough. The seer must become the doer. The impersonal is dynamized and brought into focus. We have here the acting out of the vision. Everyone, what this is talking about is the ideal becoming real, the archetype in the mind becoming the actuality in physical 3D reality. That is the symbology imbued. It means that the month ahead is going to be living in the energy of bringing the new form of individual, bringing the new form of society to a new level. Now, we also are moving into a new Chinese year, and this is the year of the Rooster, okay? Now, I'm reading here from my archetypal profile definitions for the rooster. So when you imagine a rooster and you imagine the quality sets of the rooster, you can imagine energy, a vocal nature, a being who is efficient and who is assertive. So if you are a rooster, so if your Chinese zodiac sign is a rooster, you would have the embedded quality sets, the encoded qualities of efficiency. Somebody who is methodical and resilient and resourceful. You would naturally be, at your basis, a resourceful strategist. Roosters are dominant and highly communicative by nature. The archetype is inherently intense, outspoken, honest, outgoing, and industrious. Now, it's important for us to understand that this year of the rooster is going to imbue these qualities. So we're going from the year of the monkey into the year of the rooster. So there is going to be an intensity, there's going to be an outspoken nature, a verbal nature, and an assertive nature, a dominant nature that's coming forward. And I think that's happening at all levels, within the individual and within the societal whole, within humanity. So let's move on now to the individual readings and see what is activated for you this month. Virgo, welcome to your February alchemic narrative. What is going on for you? Now here we have servant popping out immediately, so we'll see how that plays into the reading today. So you can see here the circle and the square. This is reflecting the bifurcation that I discussed in the January Alchemy Scope. So please go back to the January Alchemy Scopes to learn more. Essentially, what this is talking about is a branching of the Virgo evolutionary narrative. So what is it that's going to be occurring for you? Likely what it's going to be is a similar narrative with two nuances. That's what's been happening often, not always, but very often. So we'll see what's coming up for you. Please choose one. Pick the one that you're resonating with the most. And then in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and shuffle and select the Carolyn Mace Growth Edge, as I do every month, for the growth edge for the circles and for the squares. So I'm going to let you focus. Okay, Virgo, so let's go ahead and we'll look and see what these are. Bully for the squares and judge for the circles. So we're going to talk about these after we look at your spreads, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and do the reveal. Please put this video on pause if you need more time. We'll go ahead and unveil. Okay. So the cards in yellow, the borderline yellow here is the Brawl to Lay deck from Damon here. And the white bordered cards are my Siri deck. In the middle is one Druidcraft tarot card. So let's go ahead and get started with the squares. So we can see here that the Prince of Swords is coming up in the center along with action, which is very appropriate. The princes in the Druidcraft are the knights in the regular tarot, okay? So here, first of all, there's some action, some behavior, some action that is being alluded to for this month. The Prince of Swords is talking about certainly the mind. The swords is air, mental, communications. So there could be some active, dynamic communication, some inspiration to speak, or some action having to do with writing or speaking or communicating. For you, you also have the communication card, which we'll talk about in a second. So here, this could be, the Knight of Swords could be a figure, a person in your world that is communicating to you and creating this dynamic. It could be a teacher, because the teacher card is coming up here in the spiritual sector. And in addition to teacher, we have divine protection. So in the emotional sector. So what this might be talking about is indeed there is perhaps a male figure. It doesn't have to be male though. It could be a female. But it could be that there is an individual who is an active communicator who might be a spiritual teacher. And that's what this month has to do with. That's the narrative that's unfolding. I think that what's happening is this person is having you activate or remember aspects of yourself. I do think that this is more than just remembering the past. I think what this is talking about is somebody is communicating with you in a very dynamic way. The action card could be dynamism, but there's a dynamic communication that's catalyzing your remembering of who you are. And indeed, if we look down here, we have the joy card. So foundationally, this is going to bring you great joy, great happiness. It is going to maybe feel affectionate or feel friendly or feel familiar. That's kind of what I get from the friendship card in this placement for you. So there's almost this remembering of who you are. It's going to feel joyful and familiar. This is a dynamic communication coming perhaps from a spiritual teacher. It is going to be transformative. The death card obviously has to do with, it can have to do with death and dying, but ultimately the death card has to do with transformation. And because of all the other cards coming up, this is definitely a positive transformation. So this joyful communication is creating, this remembering is creating a very transformative experience. And indeed, it has to do with communication. So there is something occurring. There's some communication coming forward for you that is going to be catalyzing. Okay. Now let's move on to the circles. Now, with regards to the circles, it is a very different narrative for you. Okay. Or so it seems. So let's take a look at it. So firstly, the Ten of Wands is coming up reversed in the center. The Ten of Wands upright has to do with carrying much creative burden. You know, the Wands is creative projects, it's fiery action, it's innovative ideas, etc., but it's a burden. So there's a lot to carry. When this card is reversed, it's talking about releasing some burden. So there's a release of a burden this month for the circles. Now, what it comes down to has to do with, and I've not studied this reading, so let's look at it. So there is something creatively that is perhaps going to be released. It has to do with indigenous wisdom, ancient knowledge, ancient civilizations. It's something deeply spiritual, perhaps, but there's a creative project, perhaps, that is based in ancient wisdom, and it is connective. So it's accessed maybe through meditation. It's accessed through the stilling of the mind. And it's interesting because the affection card is coming up. So what I get here is that what I think might be happening, and we're going to look at the rest of the reading, but there's a releasing of some burden. For some of you, it's a releasing of some creative project that's felt good. It was connective, and it was ancient, and it was deeply spiritual, perhaps. But for some of you, you're releasing some creative exploration that you were diving into. Maybe because there was a sense of overwhelm to the now for your story. Spiritually, there is some difficulty coming up, okay? So difficulty, spiritually feeling a sense of difficulty in manifesting a friend in faraway lands. So for the circles, there's some level of difficulty in manifesting this faraway friend, okay? Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that the friendship card also came up in the square reading, okay? But it could allude to some feeling of familiarity for the squares, but maybe friendship is also involved. And maybe this remembering, this catalyzation of the teacher for the squares is reminding about affection, connection, and friendship. I will say that relationships and friendship is coming up all over the place this month for the majority of the signs. It's quite something. So with regards to the circles, there's an experience of some difficulty manifesting friends in faraway lands. This could be, you know, somebody, you have a friend over, you know, across the oceans, or that you only link with, you know, on the internet, and you're wanting to connect more profoundly. At the base of the reading, we have the receive card, do not worry, and sadness. Okay? Now, it could be that this is talking about it could be that there is sadness about a lack of concern received by this friend overseas. That you feel not like you don't matter. So for the circles, there could be some sadness erupting, emerging in the month of February 2017 that has to do with receiving a lack of concern or a lack of care. You know, you might feel disrespected or dishonored, dismissed. So let's look at the rest. Now, the knowledge card, interestingly, is coming up in the emotional sector. This could have to do with teaching and learning. You know, it could have to do with, there's difficulty with manifesting this friend in faraway lands. This could be perhaps a teacher. It could be somebody teaching you, okay? The knowledge card is also coming up in the emotional sector. So this could have to do with feeling wise, feeling educated, feeling like you understand, like you know. But because it's connected to this friend in faraway lands, it could be that there is somebody teaching you emotional things, and this person is far away. And that's creating some of the sadness. So let's take a look at the top. Now, your thoughts, dream, imagine, path, negative or no, return. So for the circles, there's going to be some negation of a return visit or of a return trip to perhaps this person in a faraway land. Okay? So there's some obstacle, and it could be that that's indeed Virgos, that's the release here. See, there's a release of affection, and there's difficulty manifesting this friend far away. And you're thinking, you know what? It's not going to come back. It's not going to return. So you're imagining your path, and you're thinking, you know what? That might not happen again. So there is a release, and it could be that this Ten of Wands release, that, you know, this upturned Ten of Wands, could be that something gets released and you don't want it to get released, you know, and that could be causing some of the sadness here. Now, the other option, or the other way to read this, is that you might be sad, but you're not that worried about it. That you're able, that the friend that's not manifesting in the faraway lands is indeed a burden that's been released. And so for some of you, you're actually going to feel maybe a sense of relief, you know? So you might be sad, but you're going to feel relieved. So that's what the story is for some of you, okay? Now let's look at the growth edges here for you. Now, Bully is the card that's coming up for the squares. So for this reading here, Bully is what's wanting to be evolved through you this month. Now, Bully is talking about growing out of concealing deep fears behind verbal and physical abuse. Now, the Prince of Swords upright is clarity, it's decision. When it's upturned, there is a sharpness to the communication. This didn't come up reversed. It came up upright for you. But because the action card is here, and because the Prince of Swords, the Knight of Swords is there, which implies action, it implies energy. The Bully card is an interesting growth edge, isn't it? Because again, it's concealing deep fears behind verbal and physical abuse. So there's an intensity certainly about communications happening here. But for you, this is wanting to be attended to. Now, what wants to be evolved is highlighting your tendency to intimidate others. Helps you to confront the inner fears that bully you. Now, Virgo squares, what this could be talking about is you are teacher. This isn't maybe another person. That you are teacher, and you're remembering the joy of friendship and communication, the joy of communicating. Again, this is about maybe ease and affection and familiarity in the communication. It could be that the action, the drive to communicate for you, activating your inner teacher, is saying, you know what, do it, but this is your growth edge. Be mindful about your tendency to intimidate others. Helps you confront the inner fears that bully you. Very good. So indeed, if this is not talking about a spiritual teacher, this is talking about your teaching work as you as a spiritual teacher. Very good. All right, now for the circles, this is about something not manifesting with relationship, and there's some sadness around it. So Judge is coming up as the growth edge for the circles. Now this is about moving out of offering only destructive criticism. Now we all know that there are qualities to Virgo, and the sign Virgo is all about keeping things healthy and in integrity so that the parts of the whole are operating efficiently, healthfully, and in integrity so that the whole is also efficient. That means that there's a micromanagement, there's an anal retentiveness, there's the critical nature of the Virgo. And this is talking exactly about that, in both of these. So this month, you are to really attend, confront, and own how you communicate. Here, the judge is saying, evolve out of offering only destructive criticism and don't misuse business, legal, or criminal authority. You want to evolve into balancing justice and compassion. So there's a way to attend to what's out of balance without being overly critical. It's also about managing the fair distribution of power. So that's the growth edge for the circles. Now, Virgo, for both of you, I've also pulled the I Ching, as I always do, and I've pulled your Dakini embodiment. Both of those for January, February, and March are listed on my website, thealchemyofholism.com/library. So you can see all of that there. You can also learn about ordering your 2017 Evolutionary Story, very in-depth reading video from me. So I encourage you to check that out. And until next month, I send you all much love for this dynamic month ahead for all of you, for circles and for squares. So I'll see you soon. Bye.